The Entrepreneurs, in association with Pictet. Hello and welcome to The Entrepreneurs, Monocle 24's weekly business show. I'm Jonathan Openshaw, putting the spotlight on the people, the places and the ideas driving innovation in the industry. I'm Jonathan Openshaw and we're coming to you from Studio One in the heart of Midori House in Marylebone. Up next, we'll speak to an architect and furniture designer from Ireland who's carving out his own space in the market, despite the recession.
My name is Sean Fogarty and I'm the founding partner of Rucker Lane Workshop. The aim of the company is to produce sustainable contemporary furniture, and we launched in October 2011. The company was founded by myself. I'm an architect, and my wife's dad, Mikey, who is a carpenter. And my background is that I trained in Dublin, Paris and Oslo, and I specialised in sustainable design. Then in 2007, I decided I wanted to work for myself, so I joined the company with some friends. And Mikey's background is that he began working with timber in 1966 and he went on to become a master craftsman. So he's been making everything from the scale of a table up to the size of a house for over the past 45 years. The reason we started the company, there's three main reasons, and the first would be that I needed some furniture for my house, and the criteria I had for that furniture was that it had to be incredibly sustainable and as green as possible, but it also had to avoid the kind of rustic look that a lot of sustainable furniture had. So I didn't want the sustainability to be used as an excuse for bad craftsmanship or any clunky kind of aesthetics, because I wanted it to be very contemporary looking. So essentially I couldn't really find anything, so I decided to make it myself. The second reason is this piece of timber here, which is a solid reclaimed maple floorboard. So I found this at a trade show and I basically fell in love with it, and I couldn't convince any clients to use it the way I wanted to use it. The material is unique because it has this patina of colour on it that comes from 30 or 40 years of kids playing on it, if it comes from a gym, or people working on it. This sample comes from an underwear factory in the north of England, so hopefully they had good times there as well. And yeah, I couldn't convince anyone to use it in this raw, dirty, essentially, state. So I decided that, okay, well, if no one else will let me use it, I want to use it myself. So we used it in the table. And then the third reason we decided to start a company is essentially the knock-on effect of the global recession. So the construction industry in Ireland collapsed roughly 2008, about a year after I decided to work for myself. And the spin-off from that was approximately 40% of architects in Ireland lost their job. Luckily, I wasn't one of them because I was self-employed. And we had tens of thousands of skilled craftsmen who, like Mikey, had worked every day for the past 40 years, and suddenly there was nothing for them to do. So it was certainly a crisis, but the opportunity that was there that I thought about was, all of a sudden you have people who normally work in a semi-confrontational manner, as in the architect fights with the builder over quality, over time, over cost. And all of a sudden, if you break down that barrier in the hierarchy and you collaborate in the way that myself and Michael are collaborating, then it becomes this really fruitful engagement of the two skill set. So you have designer and the know-how of actually how you make these things. So the meltdown and the financial crisis essentially afforded us the opportunity to pause, decide that we wanted to work together, and the collaboration resulted.
So what is it like working with your father-in-law? I mean, are there any particular challenges that you run into that, or who first came up with the idea? Did you approach him or he approached you?
Yeah, I approached him because I have great respect for anyone who can make anything, partly because I'm absolutely useless with my hands, and the only course I've ever come last in the class in was woodwork. So I wanted to improve on that, and Michael is just the most patient man you could ever meet. So he's been teaching me how to, well, improve my skills, but he's also able to come up with solutions when my design, for example, might be a bit wobbly, but it might be a bit too thin, and all of a sudden we'll come down, we'll work in the workshop and we'll come up with a solution to it that meets both my aesthetic criteria and also his functional criteria, that he doesn't want it to fall apart. So in terms of the difference between a family working relationship and something else, is I think I have a greater desire, for example, that I would actually be able to learn these skills from him and pass them on to my own children. Whereas if it was a third party who, if the business failed or if something went wrong, I wouldn't be too concerned about the fact that we would part company. But I really would like to use this opportunity that in 10 years' time, perhaps when my own son is old enough, that I'd be able to pass on these skills to him as well. And I think that's a family kind of centric criteria I have, that it's a value I want to pass on.
And you recently secured a retail space, you said, in downtown Dublin. Do you both work there day to day, or tell us about how you secured that spot and what it's like working there?
Sure. Well, it is also a knock-on of the result of the financial crisis, is that there's been a complete paradigm shift in both the retail culture in Ireland and also just the way that the estate agents, basically, when we launched the company in the Royal Hibernian Academy for 1 week, we were very excited and we were very confident about the project, but we had no idea where to take it from there because we weren't prepared to take out a big 25-year lease on our property with such a new company. And what actually happened from there was we just got invited to take part in a bunch of exhibitions that people were organising. Those people secured rent-free spaces of landlords in Dublin on the basis of a pop-up shop, and a guy called Andrew, who owns the Buddha Bag shop in Dublin, he liked our stuff so much that he said, okay, I want you in my window, and he basically got us there in one of the busiest and best shop windows in Dublin, and that is completely out of question 5 years ago when everybody was worrying about the key money and the leases, and I think it's just opened up a whole lot of opportunities with retail spaces. Yeah.
So who's buying your products now? I mean, what kind of people, who are your clients?
So far, we've got a pretty mixed range of clients. Typically, people either understand our furniture and understand why it's priced the way it is and why we do it, and they fall in love with it essentially if they want to buy it. So we've been exporting to the UK since about February of this year. So I think our target market is anyone who basically appreciates the craft that goes into making something that takes a number of days as opposed to a number of hours to make, and also that they have this unique provenance of the material, which has a former life as a floorboard.
Give us a day in the life of your workshop. I mean, what's it like actually day to day working on a design, producing a product, and putting it out and selling it?
Well, I think if someone had told me when I was studying in college that I would spend half my week in overalls, I wouldn't have believed them, but I'm very glad that I am. So the workshop is based down in North Tipperary, and I have my architecture studio in Dublin, so I divide my time between the two. So the typical day might start with a telephone call to Mikey, whereby we talk about what's the orders that are on that week or that month that we have to look at, and we also have a strong emphasis on working on new prototypes. So I'm constantly sketching, constantly liaising with Mikey to see, do you think this would work? Is this going to be something that'll take us too long to make and won't make it commercially viable? So my time is divided between working in the architecture practice and Rucker Lane Workshop. And yeah, essentially I'm the designer and I meet with the retail partners, and then Michael works in the workshop. And then when we're working on a new prototype, I'll come down and develop it myself with Michael in the workshop.
What's it like being a businessman in Ireland at the time? I mean, I just read that recent figures said Ireland went back into recession in the last 3 months. What's the atmosphere like, I guess?
I think it's a challenge, but I think anyone who's ever set up a business will always admit that it's a challenge, even in the best of economic situations. I think it's a fantastic time to set up a company in Ireland, and particularly if you're exporting. We have been in talks with funding bodies in Ireland, and they have literally said to us, you meet all our criteria plus more. So we haven't got the support yet, but down the line we look to get some support from enterprise boards in Ireland, which will recognise that we are producing jobs and products within Ireland for the export market. So I think it's challenging if you were only to focus on the domestic market, but from the very first day when I met with Michael, we decided that this is a product that will be appreciated worldwide, especially among the international design and architecture community.
And again, you're still in your infancy, but is there anything that you wish you knew, that you've learned now that you wish you knew a couple of years ago before you were starting this? Any helpful words of wisdom to your younger self?
Well, I suppose to recognise that you're not an architect or a designer if all you do is talk about it and you don't actually build anything. And I think in a recession there's a risk that people will fall back into theorising and writing about architecture and making films about architecture but not actually building anything, and the same for design. And I think the best advice, I recently gave a lecture at the School of Architecture that I studied at in Dublin, and what I told the students was to literally roll up your sleeves, go down to the salvage yard, meet the entire network of craftsmen that are across the country. It's this deep reservoir of talent that is underused at the moment, and I think to make those bonds with the people who you will learn with and will help you realise your vision. I think there's a tradition, particularly in Europe, of architects during a time of recession to do these kind of fruitful collaborations. So there's the likes of Alvar Aalto in Finland, who would have developed his plywood chair back at a time when there wasn't the best of economic circumstances, but it's this fruitful relationship that you have between the person with the dream and the person who can make it real. And it shouldn't be a confrontational role. It's symbiotic, and both can benefit from it.